Today we're going to talk about the helper's mirror, or how personal values and biases shape our therapeutic journey. First thing we want to look at is why we enter the helping field. Um, we have one reason is the wounded healer. Many enter the helping field driven by a desire to heal others because of a personal history of overcoming adversity. Um, I know this is kind of where I fall into, and I'll get into more of that in a minute. Um, that can also be some of our greatest vulnerabilities, our reasons for doing this, and it can be a double edged sword. Um, so, we'll take a look at that here. As far as my own reasons, uh, it was Labor Day 2024. I was staying with my parents because my wife had been staying with her parents to take care of her now dead mother. And she wanted to clean our house before she moved back in. Um, I'd been calling her every day while she was gone. It was just a habit I was into. You know, she's my wife. I wanted to hear her voice. Um, I had one of the kids, and we'd gone to a playground. As I talked to her about how excited I was that the family was going to be back together, she snapped and she said she wanted a divorce. I was devastated. As I dug into why she wanted a divorce, one of the reasons she gave was my pornography addiction. Um, I knew it was something I had to get under control, so I immediately started seeking help for that. One other thing that I had noticed was in 2022, I was diagnosed with autism. And ever since that diagnosis, it seemed like my wife had gotten colder and more distant. Um, but it wasn't until she said she wanted a divorce that I really thought that it was that bad. I started seeing a therapist in late September of 2024. And by May of 2025, I had progressed quite a bit, and I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I've worked 20 years in the IT field, but a back injury kept me from going back into that field. So I knew I had to retool for something, and this really gave me clarity. Um, I wanted to help hurting people just like me, those with addictions, those with broken marriages, and those who were neurodivergent, such as people on the spectrum, people with ADHD, and other neurodivergent conditions. I especially want to help neurodiverse couples where one member of the marriage is neurodivergent and another member is neurotypical. So that kind of is my reasons for going in. The benefits of our reasons for going into this field can be empathy and an authentic connection. Um, we empathize with our clients. We know where they've been. We've been down the same road. It's like it's like the old story. Somebody's down in a hole. Somebody passes by. A congressman passes by. Help! Hey, I'll write a bill that'll help you get out of that hole. A priest passes by. Hey, I'll pray for you to get out of that hole. And then finally, somebody else walks by. Help! And they jump down and enter the hole, and they say, well, why are you down here in the hole with me? You can't help me from here. He says, of course I can. I can help you find the way out. I've been down here before. And it's kind of the same way for us as therapists. Of course, this brings up the blind spot. Um, we have a strong desire to fix people and rescue them. Sometimes we might not realize that someone is beyond help. We don't want to believe anybody's beyond help, but the sad reality is there are people who are beyond help. And at least our help, maybe somebody else's. Of course, as a Christian, I believe nobody is beyond God's help, but their heart has to be open to it, and some people are not. We also might end up finding our own unresolved issues in our therapy with clients, and that might affect our ability to help them. But that's why we go to the mirror. We look at ourselves and we try to decide what problems we might have because of our motivations. And we don't let those become blind spots. And so we have to navigate transference and countertransference. The client is going to unconsciously project feelings, desires, and expectations onto us. It's just how it is. That's why we have to very strictly avoid countertransference. We can't let our own personal feelings about our own previous experiences, our own desires, and our own personal feelings for the client lead us down the wrong road. We have to maintain personal boundaries, and we have to maintain a professional relationship with the client. And of course, there's also our own personal values and how they affect our practice. Of course, compassion, pretty universal. At least I hope it's universal. Obviously, there's a few people that are not compassionate, but otherwise, I feel like it's a universal value, and I feel like it's one of the main values that we ought to have as behavioral health practitioners. But we have to look out for our own cultural and religious and personal values that might affect. One example might be you might have a client who's into non-monogamy, and you might have very deeply held family values that go against that. And so you have to measure your response to that. You know, don't let personal values interrupt your therapeutic job, your professionalism. There are certainly some things you might consider when dealing with a client who has questions about exploring non-monogamy. There might be valid reasons to dissuade them from this, but you have to make sure it is not tied to your personal values, your family values, your religious beliefs. There needs to be a good, rational, logical explanation for why. Of course, some strategies for mitigating negative influence are rigorous self-awareness. Just be aware of your own triggers and biases. Clinical supervision. Having a supervisor come in to observe, or just to look over your notes can be very helpful. And of course, there's continuing education, especially to learn about other cultural practices, beliefs, etc., to help you be a more sensitive practitioner. And we all need therapy. Continuing to go to a therapist on a regular basis, even if it's not every week, every month, but making sure you're okay, because it's okay to not be okay, but it's also something you need to work on as a therapist so that you don't project that onto your clients. And then, of course, always have to adhere to ethical codes and make sure you know what the guidelines are and follow those. In the end, we are a tool to help someone else on their journey. It is our obligation to be self aware and to do no harm. And we should see ourselves on a lifelong therapeutic journey as we practice helping others with therapy. Thank you.